All right. Let's see. I've already got the frog in my throat. This is TJRS, the John Ross Show, on an unusual time slot or usual night, usual day, I guess, or night on a Saturday night, 1st of November, or not. It's not 1st of November. It's the 6th of November. I'm still, I'm still airborne from last week. Because I took my break and come back, and things just don't really change. If you get what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's basically the premise of the entire show of House, so it's appreciated.
Also, I should just lay out. It is daylight saving time this evening, so remember to set your clocks back 1 hour. Putting my finger up on the screen, 1 hour, so you can get that extra hour of sleep tonight. And as I do every year, I set mine around 2 in the afternoon. I set mine like a few hours earlier, just because I forget. But with that said, I am joined by, as always, by my comrade, my better half of the last few episodes, Charlie, also known as RC Roberts of Ferocia Animi on
I
Substack.
I just realized when I look at the camera, it looks like I'm rolling my eyes at you. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. You've got as you said before the mics went on, you got your camera, or your camera.
Yeah, I tried to get it on my TV or my monitor, not my TV. Try to get on my monitor, and it's working. I think I look okay. Everything's a little slow on this video, or so it seems right now.
Yeah.
But it's all good. It's all good.
Well, I don't know if it's restream. I hope it's not restream. I think on my end it's my Mac. It's been getting a little annoying with this, having just to use a laptop for streaming purposes.
Mm-hmm. Right?
Especially
Yeah.
an hour-long show. So
Damn.
I might.
Damn.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm weighing the options of considering switching to a actual desktop computer with quality, with capability that could
yeah,
stream.
I would suggest it if you can.
Yeah.
Um,
Because I don't know how long this MacBook rather, which I've had it for 3 years, but it's like, how long is it gonna last?
yeah.
'Cause it's been,
Apple's waiting for you to join the lines of people who wait for their iPhones and stuff. They're like, damn, this man's had this for 3 years. Stop that man.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't switch my iPhone after a year, so I've actually had this taken in once before for memory issues, so I don't know. I have the Apple Care for it still, so it's good for a couple more years. All right. So first off, how you been doing?
Oh, irritable ever. There's a lot of things that we could talk about. We could talk about Aaron Rodgers. We could talk about Alec Baldwin.
Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers is a little. I like him as a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was great. I don't know what the hell is going on with all this vaccine stuff. No one seems to have
vaccinated. That's what I
well, if we are to give people the benefit of the doubt, which I think is fair, I think that the role of the civilized man, or the belief that he should premise their whole life on is the idea that they're not too sure. Sometimes they're not entirely sure of what's going on, and that they could be wrong. And so if we want to give Aaron Rodgers the benefit of the doubt, which I would, he said that he might be allergic to something within the vaccine. And he said he's taking the ivermectin or whatever that is.
Ivermectin, the horse pills, as I call it.
I will have to go find the article on this. But there is an article that states that basically the focus of the media on ivermectin, saying that people are using it in droves, and that they're, it's a horse medicine and stuff, that's actually not
Mhm.
true, and that's just stirred up hysteria that has no actual um concrete basis or evidence.
Mhm.
So the let's say the liberal narrative that there's all these Trump supporters and conservatives going out there taking the medicine for the wrong reasons is actually not based in reality.
Mhm.
It's just something that they keep saying over and over and over. There were some people coming in who weren't vaccinated. I think there were a hospital in Chicago. I'll have to look this up. I'll have to find the article for you. But it
Mhm.
was like a hospital in Chicago, and there were a few of them that weren't vaccinated, but they were taking the ivermectin, and it wasn't revealed as to why that was, and that's where everything got started. So Aaron Rodgers taking the ivermectin, I don't know if that is based upon faulty advice or what that is. But if we give him the
Or him.
yeah, sorry, or if we give him, but to give him the benefit of the doubt, a lot of people when they started going after Aaron Rodgers about not being vaccinated, the stories, um, first off, it's coming from sports journalists who know next to nothing, and they based all their sources off of there was speculation that they speculated, and then
Mhm.
it was proven that he hadn't taken the vaccine, and then he's been trying to give an explanation. Honestly, I don't want to be a dick to Aaron Rodgers, but he is a football player, so him trying to explain it to people, he's probably frustrated.
Yeah.
Now,
Oh.
all of that being said,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean that he should be saying some of the stuff he did, talking about I think he tried to like compare himself to Martin Luther King Jr. or something. It did
Did not
nonsense.
hear that.
Yeah,
Did
yeah,
not. Did
yeah,
not
just
hear that.
nonsense. And so I don't want to pretend like, oh, he's right to do this. I don't know. In fact, I would argue that most people don't have enough information on the
Mhm.
situation to really say stuff. Um, but um, I would give him a bit of the benefit of the doubt, but that does not change the fact that he should probably, go get the vaccine, or at least maybe make it clear to people, why that is, because there are some people who are exempt from
Right.
the vaccine based
Well,
upon medical issues. But
my thing, what you were
yeah,
just saying, like, the fact that he said he might have a allergic reaction to some of the aspects of the vaccine or what is in the vaccine. My other thing was if you had just said that in the first place, this probably would have gone differently.
right,
Maybe
yeah,
it would, maybe it wouldn't, but
absolutely.
unfortunately, yeah.
I don't know if it would have gone different as far as the reaction to it.
Right.
A lot of people are trying to get him suspended, which frankly I think has more to do with football players being,
And just
yeah,
clarification. I'm not a big sports person. I don't really like football that much. I could care less for Aaron Rodgers. Uh, yes, this is live. Uh,
well, I actually do like football. Um,
the
I
actually, I have to say, Chry- Chrysanth. I'm gonna probably pronounce your name wrong. I apologize. Chrysanthemum. I'm sorry. Uh, there is to answer your question. There is a live tab in the in the screen. So yes, our live. Uh,
unless this is all simulation, man.
yeah,
All,
we're like
all
all robots.
simulation, bro. No.
We're all robots.
Yes, no. I hope I'm not a robot.
Don't we wish we
Repro,
all were robots?
reprogram me, Jesus Christ.
Well, they science keeps telling us. Speaking of it, that we might be sorry, she's in the chat.
No,
Is
you're good.
restream a programming or yes it is. Um, Science keeps telling us, in 30 years or so, we are we're probably going to be robots, or robot like like in Japan or Tokyo or wherever
Oh
they're saying that
man, I
they're building
I
robots to take over their human ecosystem.
I have a lot to say about science and scientific predictions like that.
Right.
The whole transhuman, posthuman movement. I don't know if I want to get into that whole discussion. That is
You
a
don't have to if you
long.
don't want to.
I I'll just say this. I think people who make predictions like that are nuts, and I think that they're ridiculous, and they don't, in fact, understand the technology they're purporting to be something that's going to change the evolution of humans. Um, I think transhumanism is just Christianity, for tech nerds.
Christianity on caffeine.
Yeah, well, they always talk about, well, one day we'll all be a part of the singularity, and it's like, the fuck we will, but that's
Yeah.
fine. Um, but and it's always based upon sort of philosophical premises that are just insane. For example, transhumanism is in love with rationality, and we've seen where that's gotten us before. And to ask people to try to be rational is one thing. To say that humans are rational, or that the world is rational,
Mm-hmm.
or that the world works by these abstract laws that are in themselves rational, we just don't understand them, is stupid. Absolutely ridiculous. And
Mm-hmm.
that tends to be the premise of transhumanism, as well as the fact that transhumanism is very often, um, how do I put this? Um, very often is based upon kind of this faulty notion of human progress.
Right.
Um, Now, that's not all transhumanism. I could go into specifics about each, but I think that people who believe in transhumanism, posthumanism, and this kind of futuristic nonsense should go listen to the lectures of John Gray, who's an English philosopher, and
Mm-hmm.
he has a lot to say about technology, pointing out that technology is entirely reliant upon social relations and economic dynamics, as opposed to how people treat technology, like in science fiction movies,
Mm-hmm.
where somebody is, put in liquid, or like they're what's the where they're basically frozen for years. And what he points out is that usually stuff like this presumes that society is going to be peaceful and it's going to be developing the way it is, like, the whole time, which is not true. For
Mm-hmm.
example, if people start being able, let's say, to be immortal, it's going to be something that our market distributes unevenly,
Right.
and they're going to give it to the rich. And who's to say that those below them won't rise up about that and have at it and get rid of them because
Right.
they could.
No.
And so,
No.
sorry, so long
No.
rant, but long story short, I I I am being a rain cloud on this parade. I don't care for that kind of a speculation.
Do not do. No offense. No offense taken. You know. I think we
Right.
need to have timers for both of us, so in case we go on long-winded
Yeah.
rants, we
Yeah, that's
we
my
we
bad.
just okay. We get you get 5 minutes. You get 30 minutes, and then go on your
Uh,
rant. And when the timer goes off, no, I don't. We won't.
we're gonna have to invite we're gonna have to invite Chris Wallace to make sure that
Yeah.
we keep our time.
Well, unfortunately, my connections are pretty slim in the corporate journalism world at at best. All right.
Right.
So, with all that said, I mean, that was a really long introduction from talking about Aaron Rodgers and
Yeah, we
him
went
not
from Aaron
vaccinated.
Rodgers to robots real fucking quick.
That is the weirdest. So, there was an election last week. I watched a little bit of it because it was streaming on the Roku. Uh, Democrats in Virginia got their butts kicked, obviously, and they don't care. obviously, uh, you could I could be wrong. I could be jumping the gun, but I guess it kind of shows where Joe Biden uh, is uh, is at in the almost a year. Well, let's see. He's only been in office. I don't want to count on my fingers how long it's been, but it's been a few months since he's been in office. And for those watching who are jumping in on the platforms, the YouTube and the Twitch and whatnot, this is a piece. This is your 12th installment
Mm.
of Notes in the Margins from Ferocia Animi. How many installments are you going to do?
Um,
Are
until
you
until they tell me to stop. Until I find something better to do, or until they take me to the gallows for being an asshole. So we'll see.
well, hopefully it's not the third thing. So,
Right. Well, the thing is that I try to do my essays with a general um in a general routine, which has been a little hard to establish, but I'm starting to get to that point. For example, I did this on Wednesday. My
mhm.
articles come out Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday.
uh,
Um, so on Mondays, I have my Monday column, which is usually a deeper take on something, which I haven't had that yet.
right.
I was still sick at the time. And then I have notes in the margin,
Hmm.
which is a funnier kind of less in depth kind of an overview of two or three topics. Like in this case, it was talking about the Build Back Better legislation and the
Right.
and Virginia's
Governor's race
governor's
in
race.
Virginia.
Yeah. And then on Saturdays, I have my mere opinions, which are my reviews of different things. For example, I reviewed a book
Hmm.
today about uh, written by Sarah Mayfield called The Constant Circle. It's about H.L. Mencken. He's a journalist I rather enjoy. Um, Next weekend, I'll be reviewing the manuscript for my friend JD Smurl. He has a book. Unfortunately, it was rejected by Zero Books, but he took it to a repeater who had bought them. But it's called The Crisis of Individuality. It's very interesting, and I hope to have the review written about that this next Saturday. Um, but uh, so I try to do it with some regularity. I try to do it so that everything happens at a certain time. It also allows me to focus when I'm writing. I know what I'm writing about, as opposed to just kind of writing whenever. Um, I know people prefer that kind of content. That's kind of they prefer content that's routine and reliable. So
Yeah. Well, they
um,
they just want something weekly and
yeah,
something to look forward to. But I mean, you're writing on your own schedule, so you have to do what
right,
you have to do. Like with me, my Substack, I tend to write whenever. So
yeah.
I need to be a little more disciplined when it comes to
Well,
writing and blogging.
I that's just this is just who I am. I tend to be pretty um schedule oriented. Um, I've had family members complain because they want to come over and drop by, and it's like, nope, you have to make an appointment. You can't just come over.
See, I
So,
wish I could do that when I have something important to do with my family members. It's just
uh,
like I gotta do this, and they're like, why?
oh
Like
yeah,
I
yeah,
can't seem to pick
they
and choose.
emotionally blackmail you. I get
Yeah.
it. I'm
Um.
just yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm just kind of a I know when to be mean. I'm kind of an asshole. So if somebody's like, well, why? It's like, because I said so. Yeah, get out of my face. So,
Well,
if I had the accent, I could be a great New Yorker. Be a dick
a
to
great mid-Atlantic,
everybody.
like Vidal himself. So, I actually read this about an hour before. Yeah, about an
Oh
hour.
no, oh you're good. I write a lot, so you being able to read all of my articles might be impossible.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
yeah,
well, this one was possible because I just loved it. And
right.
again, it talks about again the governor's race. Because Virginia obviously got a big whoop in the butt from Terry McAuliffe. This guy Youngkin is going to be the next governor elect.
He's also going to be the
Um,
next president of the Lollipop Guild.
yeah, because his last name sounds so. Uh, uh,
He could
I
sell.
want
He
to
could
say
sell. He
strawberry
could sell.
shortcake.
He could sell lollipops and nobody would question it. Um,
I was gonna say his last name sounds so much like sounds so strawberry shortcake to me. So for whatever reason,
that's
but
where
to be
he gets his family
governor elect
values.
is gonna be like a Smurf or
Hmm.
something. That's
God.
yeah, that's just terrible. I mean, they got another I want to say Trumper Republican, but I don't know how far right he
He
is to Trump.
he
But
kind of so he seems to have been at least a he seemed to at least have the talking points for Trump.
mhm,
He made the whole entire race about critical race theory. He was so
which he knows
afraid.
nothing about. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, he knows nothing. He's a part of the Carlisle
The
corporation.
Carlisle group
Yeah, the
that
Carlisle
George
group.
Bush is
He doesn't know a goddamn thing. The fact that he doesn't count on his fingers is probably impressive to his mom. But outside of that, um, I he made the whole race about critical race theory. Um, and he just how do I put this? He and Terry, how do you say Terry
McAuliffe.
McAuliffe? McAuliffe?
Yes. Yeah, McAuliffe.
Here, Yunkin and Terry, which sounds like a really bad sitcom. They both were, and I wrote this in the piece. They both are were running against ghosts.
Mhm.
Terry was trying to run against Donald Trump. Personally, bad strategy. He's not in office. He's not even really on Twitter. He just, why are you running against the guy who's not even in office?
Right.
And then
And
Youngkin, yeah,
let's also be reminding that McAuliffe was governor of Virginia before, so he was running
yeah,
for the office that he was running to
yeah,
reclaim the office that he once held.
yeah. He lost it to Bob McDonald, who ended up going to prison actually over campaign. Well, I mean, I don't want to say he went to prison because you know how our politicians are. They never really spend time in prison. But he was supposed to go to prison for his campaign finance.
Right.
Nevertheless, the last time he lost it to a Republican riding in on the coattails of people disliking Obama,
Mhm.
and now he's lost again to a Republican who's riding on the coattails of people who dislike Biden. Um, but
It's kind of a night and day thing, um, regarding this book. This like not saying that Obama or Biden did everything right. I mean, obviously, I've made it clear on this show several times of my dislike of Joe's policies and what he has been doing. But it just seems like this night and day of thing of conservative, like white male, uh, like scapegoating, as best I can put it. Uh, that kind of came to the forefront of Trump. Um, but anyway,
right, well, it's not exactly the same. I guess I am so oversimplifying a little bit because the difference is this. Um, Bob McDonald made it into office because he was actually, you know what? It might be there might be the same problem for both races, but it might be a different problem.
hmm
So, Terry is a Clintonite.
yes,
He was Clinton's right hand man. He was a
of
part of the
course,
whole triangulation policy or strategy. Um, It was all, he was the one of the people who helped orchestrate moving the Democratic Party away from the working class
Mm-hmm.
and towards the what they call the professional managerial class, which actually is what you call the new class, if you
Mm-hmm.
want to use strictly Marxist terminology. And so,
I got to be careful with using that kind of terminology.
using Marxist terminology,
Yeah.
uh, I say fuck it. I'll use whatever terminology I damn well please. But I
One
I,
of our
I know it's your show.
one of our mutual comrades.
Uh, I don't want to
I
talk about.
won't.
I don't want to talk about people with shiny heads. Um, Nevertheless, back to Terry. He's a Clintonite.
Mm-hmm.
He's in the middle. You know, he's he's so lukewarm. I'm sure when you shake his hand, you feel like it's tap water because he just, he ignored the progressives, which he should not have done. Even if you're being
Right.
disingenuous running a campaign, you reach out to the progressives and you say, listen, what ideas do you have? Because progressives always have better ideas than the establishment. But he didn't do that because one thing about Clintonites is they think they have all the ideas.
Right.
They think that navigating with Newt Gingrich is some stroke of political genius, which is not.
Because Gingrich, had a good working relationship with Clinton,
Yeah, I
so
know.
they used that business model,
Yeah, well,
that failing neo-lib business
mhm.
model.
Right. And so what I find, uh, sorry. So that's the thing about Clinton. Or, I'm sorry, excuse me, Terry, who's a Clintonite. The problem with him is he completely ignored the progressives. He completely ignored the working class. He did the Clinton handbook and added one thing, which was running against Trump instead of running against Youngkin, which is a bad idea. You never don't run against your opponent because that just it doesn't make any sense. Um,
Right.
and so um, that's one of the reasons he lost, and I think that's one of the reasons he probably lost against the last Republican. Is that when you sit in the middle and you have nothing to offer? Basically, he was the conservative candidate.
Mhm.
Youngkin was the populist candidate, had conservative values, but he was the populist candidate. And Terry was the conservative candidate. He was saying, look, everything needs to stay the way it is. He was definitely a Biden candidate. He's like, look, Biden's doing great, I'm doing great. I knew he was going to lose the moment they started flying in people like Barack Obama and Kamala Harris to try to save his campaign.
Yeah, that was a really bad image move
Hell, I
on
mean,
his
even
part.
the media, which never pays attention to anything, they had one of their journalists ask him why he was needing so much help from all these people, and he refused to answer the question. He was incredible.
When you throw Barack out there, like, everything's gonna be perfect. I mean, unfortunately,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
well, I mean, look, he's terrible post-presidency, but, like, look, he's still got that star quality
well,
that most of us on the progressive side despise.
well,
So regardless of how we feel about his post presidency, uh, one way or another, bring him out.
well.
He'll
I would
he'll kind of
argue. I would argue that America has a love affair with charismatic leaders. So we
mm-hmm.
love Obama because he's charismatic.
Yeah,
I think
and it sells more tickets.
yes, and I mean, hell, we're a pretty celebrity oriented country. We love celebrities. Um,
Hell, we do.
yeah, you'll have people who, um, you'll have people who love Kylie Jenner while at the same time talking about believing in like um, environmental policies. It's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
this lady flies a private jet. She does, she lives a life of excess. You're going to support that and then tell me
Mm-hmm.
you believe in environmental policies? You don't. And so I would say Obama is mostly a celebrity type. He's mostly a charismatic leader. I have issues with
Right.
his policies. I'm not as um, I don't screech about it as much as everybody else. I think, at least on the progressive
Mhm.
side, because I see no point. There's no reason to sit here and whine about it. It's
Right.
it's happened. Um, it is a good thing to take it into account, though, to give our current trends a little, historical background, because a lot of the issues going on with the economy are from Obama and were inherited by Trump, who made them worse.
Mhm.
Nevertheless, but back to the election. So Terry was just lukewarm. He got beat by Youngkin, who was frankly more charismatic. I watched their debate. Terry was defensive. He wasn't appealing to much of anything except for, "Hi, I'm not Trump," which is,
True enough.
yeah, it's a bad strategy. The the only How do I put this? So Terry was definitely relying on Trump. He wanted to be not Trump. He didn't want to deal with Youngkin, and he ended up losing because Youngkin's charismatic. Youngkin knows how to play the people. He can play the game. He doesn't, sound like a bureaucrat. He doesn't sound like a wonk. He doesn't sound like somebody who, um, you know, who would be a very bad car salesman. He sells his idea. He probably believes in what he believes. Um, because I doubt he has the ability to think for himself. He
Mhm.
probably, it's probably Reagan-esque. He probably takes the index cards with
Yeah, he's
him.
a conservative Democrat.
But
He takes the
yeah,
he's got the
he's a conservative populist, is what
mm,
Youngkin is, and so that's what he did. He rode on the wave of populism because right now Biden is anything but a populist.
right.
Um, he he's definitely, he definitely reminds me of Jimmy Carter. I could see him being a one-term president.
Conservative president. Yeah, who
Yeah,
uh,
he's going to be one term. He's going to come out, telling people, "Oh, oh shucks, come on, man!" Like, what kind of,
if if he's not old as dirt, then he already is by the next 4 years.
yeah. And I mean, the thing is that he carried his Biden carried his campaign tactics into the White House.
Mhm.
There have been so many times when he's been talked to by a reporter and he'll respond with, "Oh, come on, man." It's like, no, no, no. You're the president. You have to answer these questions. And these people are throwing you softball. Yeah. Sorry. These people are throwing him softball questions.
Mhm.
They're just, and him not wanting to answer those. I don't know. But basically that's what happened in Virginia. Is you had a conservative candidate going against a populist candidate, and the populist candidate won.
Right.
And you know,
The votes clearly show that,
mhm.
and
And I think people who want to blame it on either progressives or just white voters are both equally wrong.
mhm.
It's not the progressives' fault. Terry didn't reach out to the progressives. He went with the Clinton playbook.
Machine.
Yeah,
Yeah, Clinton playbook
and he doesn't realize that Clintonism, um,
is dead.
yeah, well,
I
it's
mean, more or
definitely.
less.
I
I
mean,
mean,
it was it was it
if
was
it's
it
not
was
dead, it's on life support.
well, it was dead to start with.
Yeah.
Let's not lie, but it was dead to start with, and now it's part of a zombie apocalypse. But um, it's Clintonism isn't going to work. Like a zombie, it's going to scare people away. It's not going to bring them to you.
Mhm.
Um, right
I
now,
mean
the
Talked to Hillary Clinton in 2016. She thought that was going to work, and look what happened.
Oh, I don't want to talk about Hillary Clinton.
Well, we don't have to. You don't have to. I'm just kind of
No,
alluding.
no. I'm expressing dismay with Miss
Hey,
Clinton. But I would argue also. So I think Democrats right now have a populist problem.
mm-hmm,
They don't know how to deal with or appeal to populism. It used to be that both parties had a way of appealing to populism at different times. Sometimes, if the Republicans were in office too long, or Whigs, or the Federalists, or whatever, the other party would be able to latch on to populist ideas and get into office that way.
mm-hmm.
It wasn't a perfect system, lots of lying, lots of deception. But I am of the conviction that I think cynics actually make a better are better cynics are better members of government than idealists or reformists.
Mm-hmm.
And so, a lot of populist movements were hijacked, but it allowed for populist legislation to go through at some points.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't, necessarily, um, I don't want to pretend that that's how, or that means that America progressed or anything, but they would hijack the populist ideas. The Democratic Party is having a problem with that now. They had the same problem with Carter, and it's hard for the Democratic Party, who has moved away from the working class, to latch on to populist ideas. But it's not hard for conservative populists to do so. Conservative populists are everywhere, and they're willing to latch on. For example, in the debate between Ben Burgess and Charlie Kirk,
Mm-hmm.
they were talking about things, and a lot of the issues that Ben Burgess sees with America, Charlie Kirk does too. The difference is how they decide to respond. Democratic socialists and progressives tend to think that an economic solution is what's
As a
important.
Democratic Socialist, I am on the side of Burgess.
Right. But they tend to see, the economic conditions, the material conditions, they see those as what's important.
Yes.
Conservative populists see social engineering as the response.
Mm-hmm.
They think if you have the right social values, the economics will work itself out, which it won't. And what I appreciated about Ben Burgess's debate, and something that I think progressives and Democrats could learn
Mm-hmm.
from, is he used his position to show that democratic socialism answers and solves the problems that conservative populists have better than conservative populism.
Mm-hmm.
For example, it was funny when Charlie Kirk brought up Denmark,
Yeah.
and he was talking about how they have no minimum wage. It was his response to Ben Burgess bringing it up, or bringing up Denmark as a form of democratic socialism. And Ben Burgess basically showed that first off, conservatives want no minimum wage, and B, he showed that it was accomplished not
Right.
by social policies, but
Right.
by unions, having a lot of unions who can set and barter for the rights of the workers. And so, I mean, I don't know. That should be the strategy,
Right.
but it's not the
Um.
strategy. Yeah, it's not the
Yeah.
strategy.
Well, the thing about democratic socialism that you just said at the beginning, could you repeat that one more time?
That democratic socialism answers the problems that uh, answers the problem, or sorry, democratic socialism does better at answering the problems that the problems of the United States. It answers those better than conservative populism,
Yes.
because very often they see the same problem or
Mm-hmm.
similar problems, but
Mm-hmm.
their answers are different.
Yes.
Democratic socialism is focused on material conditions, which I think is the smart way to go about this.
Mm.
And conservative populists are focused on social engineering.
You are also talking about how the economic issue of what democratic
Oh,
socialism.
yes.
Uh,
Democratic socialism um, realizes that the decline in institutions, the
mm-hmm.
decline in, like the issues with social relations, the issue with minimum wage, the different issues. It realizes this all comes from economics.
Mm-hmm.
And democratic socialists and progressives tend to focus on economic issues. Um, conservative populists, however, are focused on social responses to that,
Right.
the establishment of certain social values. Charlie Kirk said natural law and virtue and agency like 1,000 times in that
Mm-hmm.
debate. And those are just vague responses so that you'll allow them to implement their social agenda
Mm-hmm.
while not actually fixing economic
The
issues.
agenda itself. Yeah.
Right. So that's what Terry should have done.
Mm.
In fact, that's what every Democrat should do right now. Because right now, the economy is in a precarious situation.
Yeah, it has been for the last since at least the 2008 crash.
Well,
The la
right,
I mean,
right.
even beyond that, but I haven't really seen a big resurgence, if you will, since that time. I mean, I could be overlooking
Right.
things. I could be jumping the shark. It's just until
No,
there's something that
I think you're right. Because what the pandemic showed was that the people who were getting better with the supposed progress from 2008 economic crisis
Mhm,
were the rich. The
absolutely.
rich were making off like bandits. They're still making off like bandits. You got
Oh,
people like
right.
Elon Musk, whose trillions of dollars are floated by like $4.9 billion in subsidies, complaining about
And going on and using a lot of money to go off into space.
yeah, and he's complaining about paying taxes. And it's like, listen, you took money from the American people to
Mhm,
buff yourself up. Pay us back. That's what this is. Taxes for him. He goes, oh, I just want to go into space. I don't give a goddamn what you want to do because the government doesn't give a goddamn what I want to do. I'd rather not pay taxes too. I'd rather go do whatever the fuck it is I want to do.
mhm.
But you can't do that. And the difference between Elon Musk and me is I'm not taking money from the government. I'm not sitting here taking money from my fellow taxpayers to make sure that I can live my life. Um, Elon Musk is. He's taking money from us. He's taking subsidies. So if he wants to whine about paying taxes, it's like, listen, give us that money back. Give us $4.9 billion back. Give it to
Mm.
us. We'll spend it better than you're going to spend it, and
Yeah.
you can fuck right off with whatever else you have.
And we'll put it in better resources too than what you're putting it into or what he's putting it
Yeah.
into.
Right.
You know, there's just
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
I mean, we all I mean, isn't he the I mean, I should know this, but like isn't he the guy that owned and operated like founded Tesla? The
Yes.
Yeah.
Elon Musk founded Tesla. He did help found PayPal. I think he's had a few businesses.
I mean,
Um,
in that sense, like to the thing about Elon Musk, I'm like, we're not all able to afford the nice little shiny Tesla car where the driver's side and the passenger seat goes up, upwards and not
mhm.
downward.
Well, that's um, why he needs the subsidies
Mm.
because we're not buying his stuff because he overprices it, and he says, oh well, it's good for the environment, it's an electric car. It's like, well, that's debatable, but even if it is, if you really want people to buy it, maybe don't make it cost so much,
Yeah.
because now the only
Make
people
it
who can
look
buy it
ugly.
are, yeah. Right, well, and now the only people who can buy it are people who have that kind of disposable income.
Mm.
With, and with the pandemic and everything going on, the number of people with disposable income is shrinking.
Mhm.
Unless he's gonna buy,
And
unless he's gonna buy his own cars. um,
who wouldn't wanna buy a Tesla anyway? I mean, I wouldn't. They've moved the one,
I
here up
I
in
I will give one thing to Elon Musk, and it will make people who are on the left probably not like me very much. I do think he's an interesting and innovative person.
Mm.
I think that he is probably a pretty good engineer. He's definitely a bad CEO though.
Yeah.
Um, if you could make it, I'm sure if you could make it to where he doesn't make any of the fucking business decisions and you just leave him in a garage or something working on stuff, he'd be fine. He would be less of a menace to society.
Right.
But he has a belief that he knows so much, and so he applies it to government, into what he thinks of society, and it's primitive. It's
Mhm.
all self-interest. Basically, it's a psychological projection. It's what he
Yep.
wants, so he assumes it's what's good for society. Um, in fact, it's a lot like Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I have a few problems with. I know a lot of people like him. It's not saying he's a bad scientist, but
Right.
he tweeted or wrote out this idea of a government called Rationalia, which made me want to die. It is the worst name ever. Um, I should be able to go around and hit people who do stuff like this. But um, he said, oh, there would be a government of Rationalia, and it would have one rule, which is that all legislation should be backed up by empirical evidence.
Mhm.
It's like, listen, there's no lack of empirical evidence for legislation. That's not the problem. The problem is the choice. Where do we want to go? Some
Right.
people are okay with the working class being crushed underfoot, and they would pick whatever statistics they wanted to prove that point. And so his proposal is stupid. But you have people like this who
Mhm.
are smart, I'm sure, in their field, narrow as that might be,
Mhm.
who are talking about politics. They don't get it. They don't understand. They don't have, you know, government, I'm sorry, is not physics. It's not engineering. You can't just tweak it a little bit here and there. It's not a mathematical formula. Humans are not calculable. We are strangers to ourselves in the sense that we don't always know what we're going to do.
Right.
Um, this isn't a storybook. We don't all have predetermined characters. So, um, to have people like that establishing themselves as um, some kind of expert on this, I think that's the biggest problem with Elon Musk. Is now he's turned his business, which is funded by the government,
Mhm.
into a place that's a vehicle not only for his engineering ideas, which I think Teslas are pretty cool. It's nice to think about them. I'd never pay for one. Um, but that, he's good at that. But now Tesla is a political vehicle too, for his political ideas that are underdeveloped, primitive, and without any actual grasp of reality. At no point does the ideology of Elon Musk and the sycophants who follow him out of an admiration for our celebrity culture.
Hmm.
At no point does their ideology touch reality at any point. It doesn't engage with any, thinkers, any theorists, nothing.
Right.
And you don't have to know every theorist. You don't have to engage with stuff like that. But if you're not going to engage with intellectual thinkers, you have to engage with reality. You have to look at things and say, this is what's going on. And just take it from there. And Elon Musk doesn't do that. And unfortunately, now his business is a political vehicle for his ideas.
It's the same way with Bezos and Amazon. You see it with Bill Gates and I don't know if he's still running Microsoft these days, but
I,
uh,
I, I think he's in hiding right now
yeah,
because of the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing and his god
yeah, I
response
forgot
to that.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. Well, he should have known that that was going to come back to haunt him in the end, right? Um. Yeah. Well, we won't say anything further. Well, it's like with Bezos, it's the same thing. It's like they're using their company. Like Amazon is like this, like obviously huge online internet store, as best I can say. And you've got workers that are putting in like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours a day, just putting numbers out there, working to get deliveries. And there was a good article in Jacobin about how the workers themselves were being treated. Like they would get in trouble for simply wanting to go to the restroom, which I found so ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And I found so like this culture of switching, staying on the topic of companies, but kind of switching
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
similarities up. This sort of culture that is in businesses like Amazon and Tesla, uh, with they just promote these big uh, environments that are just they want to be like, oh, we're the best thing in the world. Everybody could have what we've got, and it's just the safest thing in the world. When in reality, it's not.
Well,
Plain and
all
simple.
right. Well, Amazon probably believes, and Tesla doesn't have this arrogance about them yet. But Amazon probably believes that since it's a service industry, in the sense that, you know, people become so used to using Amazon that to absolutely ban them or boycott them is unthinkable.
Hmm.
Um, they probably think that since they're in that business, they can get away with things. Um, and unfortunately, the American people have proved them right for the most part.
Hmm.
You have people who defend Jeff Bezos all the time, and you have, the American people in general would rather not hear about the problems with Amazon workers because they don't want their ability to have access, to be able to pay for, shipping tomorrow.
Yeah.
They don't want to be able to lose that. And so if they think if they can close their eyes and not pay attention, that it will all go away and they don't have to worry about it. And that is the American character for the most part, in the sense that um, we will look away from something before we investigate it.
Right.
Um,
We've tended to do that as a country
yes.
for the last 20,
I
maybe even
mean,
longer, 20 plus years.
consider.
Uh,
Oh, I'm trying to think of the name of the author who wrote the book, The Jungle.
Not the
About
Jungle Book, not
no,
Rudyard Kipling.
no. I'm talking about the one that investigated the meat packaging industry. It's like Sinclair, something Sinclair. I want to say Lewis
I have to look
Sinclair.
into it.
Yeah, I want to. It was either Lewis Sinclair or Upton Sinclair. Nevertheless, either one. Um, the the thing is that um, from that revelation did come government action, because we had Theodore Roosevelt at the time, um, who was more than willing to use government power for different things. Not all good. And but when that came out, that's when the phrase "you don't want to know how the sausage gets made" became popular.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, from that entire debacle, that entire horrible, people are dead rats, and people's arms and fingers are being mixed in with the meat. From that whole scenario, the American people in general got the phrase, "You don't, let's not look at how the sausage is made."
Hmm.
And I think it's similar to today. I mean, think about it this way: a lot of people are very critical of historical figures, and they say, and when you give the response that, hey, they are a product of their time, they dismiss that. They say that's not a good enough argument. And
Right.
these are the same people who don't want to pay attention to Amazon. They wear Nike shoes that are made with child labor in China,
Hmm.
and have the gall to talk about slavery as if they are high and mighty, when they, the products which they buy are made from slavery. And so I still stand by the idea that people should be forgiven for being product of their time, because hell, I that's one of the main issues with capitalism, is
Hmm.
unfortunately there's no such thing as ethical consumption. Everything you have is made by working class people being crushed under boot. It's made by child labor in other countries. You know, unfortunately, there are horrible things that create our products, and the American response to that usually is to look away. They don't want to look at it. They don't want to hear about it.
They see it, but they don't want to hear it.
Yeah, it's in quote unquote polite society. If you bring up the stuff at the dinner table, people will tell you to be quiet, because they'll be like, "Oh, we're just trying to have a good time." It's like, well, I don't, just that's part of the American response. And unfortunately,
Hmm.
and to bring this full circle here, that is starting to become the Democratic
Oh,
Party's
hold on.
response. Oh,
I have somebody knocking at my door, so
okay.
you just hang on for 1 minute.
Hmm.
Sorry about that. Woman had the wrong
Oh,
house.
you're good. Oh, you're good.
Always happen. Not often though. All right. So what are you talking about?
Nah.
Bringing
I was
bringing it full
I
circle.
I was gonna take I was gonna my the current thing I just said about the American character. I was gonna bring it back to the Democratic Party.
Hmm.
In that, I think the Democratic Party is very much trying to play on the American tendency to overlook things, and they
Hmm.
don't want to talk about unions going on strike. They don't want to talk about the conditions in play. They don't the condition in places like Amazon. They don't want to talk about
Hmm.
billionaire taxes. They don't want to talk about any of that. There was an article I read earlier about the infrastructure bill that just passed, and Biden called on the phone, supposedly, into the meeting that the progressives were having with Nancy Pelosi, and basically begged them to trust him, that things were going to
Wow.
work.
Wow.
Now,
When they knew things.
well, here's the thing: if you're the president, why
Mhm.
are you begging Why do you have to plead? Ask people to trust you.
because he know that it's probably going to be flawed.
Well,
What's the problem?
I think it's because he wants to give himself. If he can pass the infrastructure bill, he can
Mm-hmm.
get everybody to forget about the social policy bill,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can let that die, basically.
I mean, he did it. I mean, going back to the Build Back Better. I mean, he or I won't even necessarily call it Build Back Better,
Hmm.
but he is like taking tuition-free college
Yeah,
out of that plan, and
right.
that was like probably one of the, as a college student, I'm like, that's probably one of the biggest things going on with people that are in school. They're basically having to worry about how they're going to be able to apply semester by semester and rely on federal aid from the government because there is no other way to do so. And you're the first lady, your wife is a professor at at a prestigious university, for God's sake.
Right,
Like,
right. And
do you think you thought of her when you before you took that out of the
well,
plan?
here's what's interesting is
I mean, I'm not trying to evoke, Jill Biden in any kind of negative sense. I'm just saying that, you know, it's
there
what she
there's a
does.
difference between being negative and being critical. You're just being critical. You're not being negative. Um, Nevertheless, um, I feel like legislation nowadays, if we had to give it an analogy, it's like going
Mhm.
to a really bad dentist who just starts knocking out teeth one by one until you're toothless. And they say, well, at least you don't have to brush your teeth or deal with that anymore. You won't have any problems with your teeth because you don't have any. That's not a solution. That is the avoidance of a solution. And so, I'm surprised that, if this legislation is going to go to Biden, they better tie a string onto it because it's so full of hot air. It's probably going to go into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So, um, and that's the issue with the Democratic Party. They won't look at anything. They don't want to look at the issues, especially right now. It's not to say that the Democratic Party has always been that way, but definitely recently doesn't want to look at any issues. Um, and I think it's kind of been that way since Clinton. I would argue. I think before Clinton, it was a little different. Um, but with Clinton appealing to the new class, excuse me, and kind of the more professional individuals like lawyers,
Mhm.
he started to move away from having to start with the working class and build a coalition.
Mhm.
And he moved towards people who would be loyal regardless, as long as you made sure that their livelihoods didn't change.
Mhm.
You know, um, and so um, there's a whole series of issues with the Democratic Party. It's a whole mess, as is the Republican Party. But
Both political parties are a complete mess at the moment, and they have no
right,
chance
well,
of
yeah, the Republican Party is a husk. It's there for
with
a
I will say with some how do I say it, with some extensions within the right, or exemptions, I should say, within the left. The Democratic Party itself has virtually no chance of at least trying to rehabilitate itself.
well,
It's
I was
gonna
going to say the Republican Party right now is a husk that requires a strong man or a charismatic leader every 4 years.
Mhm.
That's the only reason it's still around. It's because of that, and probably because of Mitch McConnell. Um, Without those two people, the Republican Party is it's it's barely a party. It's mostly it's mostly a money laundering industry for rich people put their money in and get it
Yeah.
laundered back. The Democratic Party may not be a husk, but it's definitely a gray Kafka style, just bureaucracy, where everything has to get categorized, everything has to go towards, the tendency of corporate America to make everything be a certain way to serve itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, I've always maintained that America is an airplane with two right wings. Both of them are part of the property party. And that's why, you know, some people say we have turbulence because we're going into an uncertain future. But I'd like to remind them that we actually have vertigo because we're just going in circles.
Mm-hmm.
And so, unfortunately, what that also means about the governor race, and the last thing I think I'll say about it, is that um, elections are starting to become cyclical in the sense that the same problems we faced at some point in time are coming
Mm-hmm.
back to haunt us because we don't solve them.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And America is um, a place where lots of elections are held, but nothing changes.
Right.
Um, I think Mark Twain has been proved right when he said that uh, if voting actually changed things, they wouldn't let us do it. So,
Mm.
but that's all I have to say about it. That race, anyway.
Your words are a breath of fresh air to my ears. I'll just say
Right.
that in
If
positive
if,
sense.
if anybody blames progressives, we should be allowed to pop them in the mouth at least once. Because,
We've tried to
well,
in the last few
yeah,
years.
it's not the progressives' fault. The progressives
No,
weren't
absolutely
yes. I'm sorry. Excuse me. The progressives were never consulted at any point.
not at all.
This was a conservative Democrat running for office. You know, Clintonite. Um, hell, he looked old compared to Youngkin. Um,
And they're about the same age too.
yeah, and so it's it, people have looked at this race and they've derived many different reasons for different things not working out. Um, every critical theorist has probably gotten up on their soapbox at some point here and said something about it, as well as every Republican pundit who doesn't need help putting two sentences together has probably
Mhm,
had something to say about this.
mhm.
But everybody likes to complicate it, and it's not that complicated. Um, you know, it's to borrow from Pascal Robert of the This
This
Is
is
Revolution,
revolution.
yeah, podcast. This is the continuation of what's been a 50-year counter revolution, and we're digressing, and not I'm sorry, not digressing, we're regressing. Um, and so but people make it more complicated than that. They try to throw in um different theories or ideas, or they try to you know treat it like it's destiny or something. It's
Not
just
destiny like the Twitch streamer.
no. um it, it's just it's none of those things, though. It's not that deep, it's not that complicated. It's bad politics. It's the inability to deal with the trends that are going on currently.
Yeah.
um Not that I suggest that populism really needs to be a main. If you want to win a political race, an election, populism's important. But I say, as far as policy is concerned, maybe don't go to the populists. They don't know what they're talking about.
Don't go the populist avenue.
Yeah,
Too
yeah.
far.
It's like I said in the article. Populism is like a stripper. It gets you
You
really
said that. You said
it,
that in the article. I
yeah,
didn't say that.
it gets you really excited, but you end up going home with, no money
Less
anyway.
money than you have.
Yes, less money than you have, and honestly, you go home alone anyway.
Yeah.
So, um, that's populism. That's what it is, and we should not use it for policy, because then policy becomes stupid. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
not that, yeah, and it's not, policy now is not stupid. It's just corporate,
It's corporate
which
influence.
makes it exploitive. Yeah, populism's just stupid.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
and yeah,
finish your thought.
well, I was going to say a lot of people aren't going to agree with me on that. A lot of people like populism. Hell, some of the people I enjoy listening to, like Thomas Frank, who used to run the Baffler,
Hmm.
he's a populist, and I enjoy reading his stuff. I just don't think populism is the answer.
Hmm.
Um, we've seen what happens when populism is without restraint.
Hmm.
We saw it with Trump. We saw it in its full form, which is that it has no inner core. The will of the people is the will of a husk. It's the will of a bunch of people screaming fire in a theater. It doesn't help anybody. And so, you know, populism is not enough. It's enough to win elections. But if you want to focus on policy, I'd argue, democratic socialism is the way to go. And I know there are people in the circles of people like Jimmy Dore and Caitlin Johnstone who don't like democratic socialism.
Because they never did.
Well,
My,
well, it's because they don't know what they're talking about. Generally,
Jimmy generally doesn't know what he's talking about.
yeah. Well, and neither does Caitlin Johnstone. Neither does a lot of them, because what they do basically is their whole position is that um, you don't engage with the establishment. You make demands,
Mhm.
and that's it. That's the end. No organization. By the way, the Medicare for all march or
Yeah.
whatever, that's not getting together. That's not organization. That
Well, to
that's
me,
based.
that's kind of like fracturing the event of the the basis for Medicare for all. Same way with force to vote. It's just a smattering of people led by Jimmy Dore. It's not run
Well,
correctly.
here's my
That's my whole opposition.
well, my whole thing when I was watching that. By the way, this is populism on the left.
Hmm.
Dore, Johnstone, etc. Populism on
Mate,
the left. Yeah,
Dahl.
it's populism on the left. It's people being upset and using that, using performance to uh to try to soothe their issues. Getting people together for a rally is not organization.
Mhm.
Getting people together online to donate money for a fundraiser is not organization.
Mhm.
Sitting around having as many followers as you can get, pissing them off every night with nonsense is not organization. Organization is getting together and creating a basis for grassroots movements.
Mhm.
Organization is getting together and putting together something for your community to help them out, and using that as a basis to build some kind of political organization. If
Mhm.
you don't, for example, Medicare for all, if you really wanted to force the vote, unfortunately, you're not going to force the vote immediately. This is the
Right.
problem with people like Dore. You don't get immediate results.
Exactly.
And the only way you get immediate results is if you beg and plead to the people in power, which he pretends he doesn't do. And I don't think he does. I doubt he knows how to dial a phone, but he, you know, you would have to beg and plead with the people in power. They would have to have already wanted to do it. And then they would probably do it in the most toothless way possible, like build back better.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you get immediate results, and they're bad results always. If you want to force the vote, if you want to have Medicare for all, you have to organize outside of the political parties, and not just a rally. That's not enough. You got to bring people together and say, hey, listen, this is the goal. You become a group that works towards something, and you bring people together, and you win the local elections, or maybe you don't take part in the local election, but maybe you put pressure on the local election. You have to take time. And whenever I say to people you have to take time, they go, oh well, you're for gradualism then. And it's like, no, I'm not for reform. But I also know that shooting off at the hip and not having an organization and just hoping that people really care about Twitter and what Twitter is doing on any given day is not activism. It's nothing. It's the most, for people who are so concerned about virtue signaling and performative politics, it's the most performative politics out there.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't catch the irony. They don't understand that their outrage and their their one rally, and their outrage and their hashtags and bullying other people and that's not activism. It does nothing. And people who, they'll go to Jimmy Dore and they pretend like he knows things, and that
He does.
he's actually advocating for something, and that he actually is trying to help people. And it's like, you don't get the fact that he is a charlatan. He is a con man. He wants you to be angry. And he doesn't want you to be angry with an outlet. He's not here to help you. As soon as you get an outlet, he doesn't have an audience. He has to anger somebody else. That's why he keeps moving to the right, because the angriest people are on the right. And so, he's not helping people, but people pretend that he is because they sympathize with his anger. But if you're really angry, then realize that you're going to have to accept that anger is not going to be resolved immediately.
Right.
You need an organization that can take the anger, the hurt, and the problems and the working class and contain it and put it to use. Start
Mm-hmm.
with start with your local businesses, organize people, get them together, and then, I don't know, go to, I probably don't have a good roadmap because I have not been an activist myself. I'm a writer. That's my activism, and it's not very good, but it's what I know. It's what I can do. But let's say hypothetically, you get people together, maybe people who have either lost their job or they're in a situation where there's a problem with their job, and it doesn't even have to be from the same jobs. Get them together and start an organization. Have some rules, have some procedures, have some bylaws. Set up an organization and get it working. And then start appealing to, maybe, try to get some funding somewhere, right? I know it's hard. This is the nitty-gritty shit that people don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be a part of. This is the part where in a movie in Hollywood they skip over it with a montage. But this is the part that's important. You got to get people together. You got to get fundraising. You got to get an organization going. Even if you start off where, I guess it could be similar to getting started when you're writing, or like now with you doing your podcast. There are going to
Mm-hmm.
be days when no one shows up, and you got to keep going. But eventually, and unfortunately, this takes time. And I'm sorry that people have a problem with that, but it takes time. But eventually, that organization gets built up, and it can actually handle things on its own. And it can actually deal with stuff. And it has to start with local issues, not because local issues are more important, but
Mhm.
because of the fact that if you don't have a handle on your local situation, your local community, you can't, you don't have anywhere to go in politics. Politics requires the people, um, as a way to move forward, to have any sort of, vitality. I mean, the civil rights movement, um, unions early on, and I can think of a variety of different movements that were a big issue that had the power to do what they did because they had people and
Mhm.
they had an organization.
Right.
So when people come up to me and they tell me that Jimmy Dore is a great guy and he has such great ideas, and his harassing of women and his weird fixation on Tulsi Gabbard and his inability to discuss anything without getting angry over God knows what, and
Mhm.
his constant anti-establishment with no solutions
Mhm.
except to be angry and to quote unquote force the vote, try to get people to get active on Twitter. When people tell me that, it makes me realize that the American left is dead. There are leftists, yes, but the American left itself is dead. And until we take it away from Twitterati jihadis and avatar warriors like Jimmy Dore and Caitlin Johnstone and bring it back to reality and
Mhm.
deal with working class issues as they are, there will be no American left. It is dead right now. There's nothing going on that's on the left. We have leftists. We have people who talk about it. The most active people on the left are Democratic Socialists.
Mhm.
And there are people who despise the Democratic Socialists. And it's like, well, I'm sorry, but they're actually organizing things.
Right.
They're actually,
We're actually saying rather than doing.
right. Yeah. And if you don't agree with their policies, then try to develop a reason why. Don't just hate them because Jimmy Dore hates them. Don't just hate them because Caitlin Johnstone hates them. Have a reason, articulate that reason. One of the things I love about writing is that it forces you, instead of having a knee jerk reaction, some weird Twitter comment, some weird Facebook, excuse me, screed where you just rant about something, you have to formulate your ideas. You have to put them together and you have to ask yourself questions. Why do you like this? Why don't you like this? Does your dislike make sense? And so that's what has to happen. And people like
People
Jimmy
like
Dore
Jimmy
don't.
Dore don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they're anti. I'm sorry, I keep hearing my echo on your side, and so I keep answering myself. My apologies. But
No, 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 no problem.
Jimmy Dore is the problem, or is one of the problems. He's not the only problem. I don't want to
Mm.
single him out and give him martyr status. He's not worthy of martyrdom, and I don't like martyrs anyway. Um, but Jimmy Dore and the populist leftists who are just anti-establishment, no matter what, blindly, are the problem. Because once you start building an organization and you start trying to deal with things and you start dealing with reality,
Mhm.
they tear you down. They
Yeah.
try to stop you. And the thing is this: they talk about you organizations dealing with reality, and they say, "Oh, this is compromise," and it's not. One of the things I hate about Caitlin Johnstone, for example, is in one of her articles, and I forget which one it is. I think it's her article, Be Your Own Revolution. But she talks about the truth and reality and basically says that those things are socialist. And the only reason we don't accept them is because the world's obscured. And we are so blinded by propaganda, we can't see that the truth and socialism are the same thing. That's not the case. The world is neither socialist or fascist or capitalist or anything. It
Mhm.
is affected entirely by how we act. And right now we are acting out capitalism. And so reality is capitalist. And so when socialist organizations deal with reality, you're dealing with things that are actually happening. And if you have to change a strategy or change a principle, it's usually in response to a reality that can't be moved. And people like um, people like the Dorites and the populist left who scream about compromise
Yeah.
don't know what they're talking about, because unfortunately when you hit reality and reality says you can't go further, this is it.
What more is there to say?
Yeah, yeah, there is no more to say. Or what happens is, and this is usually what happens, is that an organization will hit something like reality, and it's not that reality can't change, it's that it takes time. But then
Yeah.
once they start taking time and they say, hey, give us time, we have to deal with this and all these things, then they start saying, oh, it's a compromise. It's like, no, 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 it takes time, you idiot. Everything takes time. And unfortunately, that's how this works. And so, sorry, that was a long.
No, no, it was much needed. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it also kind of reiterates my everything that you've just said, and I've taken it in as much as I could.
Oh, you're
Um,
good.
reiterates my disdain for people like Jimmy Dore and the populist left.
Right.
Uh, I mean, I could tick off the list a few names. If they're not so-called populist, I mean they certainly agree with Jimmy Dore on in every sense of the word, like Aaron Mate and Max Blumenthal and uh, Crystal Ball, Katie Halper, uh, just to name a few. Um, yeah,
Well, yeah, and I'm sure that it comes in degrees, because I also don't want to sit here and pretend that Jimmy Dore is wrong about everything. That's a stupid position to take with anybody.
see,
Nobody.
now that I've said those last two words, those last two names, I feel like I'm gonna get into a little bit of trouble now.
If they remember this, if you do get in trouble with them or they start bothering you, remember that in a world where people are talking constantly, the greatest weapon you have is silence.
Yeah.
Um, if you want to really piss somebody off to where they just go down in flames and self-destruct, be silent. Don't talk to them, because they'll freak out. They want you to respond. Now, um, I want to say this though: Jimmy Dore and Caitlin Johnstone and Halper and stuff like, and people like them, I don't want to pretend that they're always wrong. For example, Katie Halper, I actually like a lot of the stuff she says, not everything, but I appreciate her commentary. And they're never 100% wrong. That's why I don't say that they are, you know, oh, they're secretly alt right or whatever. That's dumb. That's stupid. They're
Right.
leftists.
I mean, I will say this. I will take back a little bit about those two. Yeah, Katie is good people. She does have some good leftist qualities. And same with Crystal Ball. It's just like, you I guess my whole thing is like I wish they would question Jimmy Dore and his methods as much as they do uh taking his side, if you get what I'm saying.
Well, yeah,
Uh
and unfortunately, the way people react to things is if you agree with some people some of the time on some things, and that person gets attacked, you usually feel a need to defend them. And Jimmy Dore takes his fair share of heat, and
mhm.
so they're probably standing with him in that sense, that to defend themselves, because I'm sure they share some, a lot of views. But I also want to get away from demonizing somebody where you just kind of chuck them out the window and their ideas and you say fuck this.
Mm.
I don't think their approach is right. I think their approach is ridiculous, and I think their approach does nothing. And I think that their call for things to get done is undercut by the fact that their stance is basically meant not to get anything done.
Mm-hmm.
That said, not all their ideas are wrong. Sometimes when they criticize, let's say AOC, for example, or the squad, I think they're correct. I don't think the squad really has as much power as it pretends it has. And so they're unable to do the things that they want, and they end up compromising. And unfortunately, where we differ on this is
Mm-hmm.
that they think that it's like a plot, that
Right.
AOC's there just to take money and fuck around, and she doesn't care. For me, I don't like to think in conspiratorial terms. I think people who believe in conspiracies are idiots, and so I
That's
don't
the
see it
one
that
thing
way.
we agree on.
Yeah, and I don't see it that way. I think AOC just doesn't have the power, and people don't understand that power, even in the halls of Congress, actually, especially the halls of Congress, are not distributed equally.
Mm-hmm.
You know, someone like Nancy Pelosi is definitely going to have more power than AOC. Just you're going to have to deal with that. That's
Right.
how it is. That's why people form caucuses, because unfortunately, where there's power that's unevenly distributed, you have to get together with other people and try to change the balance. Um, so, but you see, so they're not always completely wrong necessarily in their analysis. I think their conclusions are usually wrong, though.
Mm-hmm.
My particular issue with Jimmy Dore is I think he's a performer. This is the difference between him and, say, Katie Halper, for example. I
Mm-hmm.
think Katie Halper is genuine. I think she genuinely believes what she thinks, and that, if I ever met her, I'm sure that if she and I talked, maybe things get sorted out. Maybe I see her position. Maybe she sees my position. I think she genuinely cares.
Have
I
you though?
don't. What?
Have you? Have
Talk
you
to.
met Katie up? Yeah.
No, no. I am far. I am not famous enough for any of that stuff. Um,
Well, that just got my curiosity peaked.
huh. I no, but I think she genuinely cares, and she's truly trying to take a stance that she thinks is helpful to the working class, as well as to the United States as a whole. I think Jimmy Dore is a performer,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that he is very disingenuous. He seems to change his opinions depending on who he's talking to. When he went on Joe Rogan, he doesn't have the same opinions as he does in front of his audience.
Mm-hmm.
When he goes on and talks to, like, I can't think of all his interviews at the moment. My apologies.
No, no,
But
I saw.
he seems to be a different person depending on who
Yeah,
he's talking to. And so, for me, he's playing to an audience.
definitely.
You can expect the same thing from Katie Halper, no matter
Mhm.
what.
Yeah,
She's going to
in
go
a
in,
way.
yeah, and she's going to believe what she believes, and she's going to state it, and that's fine. I think Jimmy Dore is performative, and I think he's generally a hypocrite. So,
Definitely.
um, and so, uh, that's kind of what I think. I kind of think the populist left needs to get back in touch with the notion of organization,
Right.
realize that things aren't going to happen immediately,
Yeah.
and that things take time, and that engaging with power is not a bad thing. It's the only way you're going to deal with the situations in the United States.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, for example, um, I don't, I'll put it this way: the United States has never been a place that has embraced democracy. It's never, it was set up by the founding fathers. Um,
Oh,
yeah, your light
no.
keeps fluctuating, my guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's my. I'm sorry. It's my lighting situation. I'm trying. I've been trying to get my. It's me trying to adjust my lighting. I don't know what it is. So
I told him to hold a flashlight under his face, and he said he didn't want to look too ominous. Uh,
You did
I'm,
not.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But so one of the things, and I think this should be the last thing I'm going to say on this, because I take the long view on things. I like to understand the history of something and bring it back to the present. And one of the things that needs to be understood is that the current Constitution is not made to uh, have sympathies with socialists and the far left, and leftism in general. When the Constitution was first made,
Hmm.
and there's an interesting book on this by Charles A. Beard. It's very old, but very good. It's about the economic interests and how they affect the Constitution. And when it was first made, there was a constant reference by James Madison, who we could basically call the founding, the creator, the designer of the Constitution. There's a constant reference in some of his work and some of his speeches to what he calls the iron law of oligarchy.
Hmm.
And he believed, as did the other founding fathers, that democracy, which they always referred to Athenian democracy, they never referred to any other kind of democracy, was bad. It was just as bad as monarchy. It wasn't worse than monarchy or tyranny, but it was close.
Hmm.
And so they established the Constitution as a republic to be between monarchy and democracy. Now, the leftist movement is about bringing democratic influence into institutions in the United States. And so far, we have sort of done that.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's only been with voting, though. I should probably say not only with voting, but it seems to be that the institutions have survived as they are,
Hmm.
um, even with changes and things like civil rights. Um, and it's to the point that those institutions are still able to take away our liberties constantly at any point, including the Patriot Act all the way back to John Adams and the Alien and Sedition Act.
Hmm.
It's always been able to. And people need to understand that the only way to deal with a constitution that doesn't make room for your views or for the views of leftists is to organize so that you can have some sort of access to power. Because unfortunately, the Constitution itself is not going to allow for you to change it, um, either by virtual activism, like Jimmy Dore is doing,
Hmm.
or honestly by necessarily only being, a representative in the House of Representatives, like AOC,
Hmm.
um, who can be outweighed by the powers of Nancy Pelosi and moderate Democrats.
Definitely.
Um, and so that's why you have to organize. You have to give people, like, because one of the problems with AOC, for example, is not only does she not have power in the House of
Right.
Representatives, she has no organizations to fall back to.
Right.
She
And that's generally not her fault. I mean, yeah,
she yeah.
she ran on this thing of like trying to shake the system up, and she got in there, and Nancy Pelosi is just like, hey, oh, yeah, I know I just my lighting's uh my lighting's an issue, but
um
she was just like, hey, it's not, it don't work that way. What you guys do out on the campaign trail as progressives isn't going to work here. We are the establishment.
mhm.
We don't wear leather jackets or anything of that nature. Uh,
Right.
a weird analogy, but um, it's like, and also, well, that they're from the Bernie Sanders. No matter what we think of Bernie Sanders, or what you think. I mean, you and I are definitely are going to have some differences of opinion on Bernie Sanders for sure, and the Justice Democrats and the Squad, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, Nancy Pelosi and the establishment wing of the Democratic Party, the neolibs, as they're mainly called, they look at people like AOC as, yeah, you're the outsider still. You're of that Bernie Sanders crowd that that's trying to tell people and voters and whatnot that we're the bad people.
Mhm.
That not only are the Republicans the bad people, but the people that you are actually running on, the party of which you are running on, the Democratic Party, is bad as well.
Right.
And they are right. I will say, I'm going to say it. I said it then, years ago. I'm going to say it now. And if it pisses people off, so be it. Bernie Sanders was right. He still is right when it comes to the corporate elitists in the Democratic Party, the billionaires, the you called it as you call them, the Clintonites running the party, and they still are running the party. And has Bernie, been somewhat of a? I wouldn't say he's been necessarily of a disappointment. Has he sometimes run against the message that he has that he when he went out and campaigned on when he was running for president? Sure. And for that, I think that I for that I think he needs to come along further and actually keeping with the message, the sort of grassroots message um, that he had. But
A note real quick on compromise or not doing what he said. Um, I would argue this.
mhm.
I
And I
am
apologize for the rant.
no, you're good. Don't. It's your show. Um, I say we should be a little forgiving of people like Bernie Sanders.
Yes.
When he doesn't do what he said he's going to do on the campaign trail, what you have to understand is a few things. One, he was running to be president, which would put him in a different position than he is right now. Secondly, one of the things that I hate about leftists,
Mhm.
and it's
Not
nothing,
all leftists. Some leftists.
maybe not all leftists, but it's a general blindness on their behalf, is that they assume that the rest of the world agrees with them, but they just don't know it.
Mhm.
And what they have to understand is that their ideology is one of several in the American political system.
Mhm.
You are going to go to places in every state where there are people who will not agree with you at all on anything. And what
Mhm.
you have to understand is that that's the case in Congress as well. Some people will look at, say, Manchin or uh, how do you say her last name? Is it
Cinema.
Cinema?
Kirsten Cinema.
Um, they look at them and they say, well, they're being, either like facetious or hypocritical, or they're just, they're being obstructionist. And it's like, well, no, they probably believe what they believe. I don't know about Cinema. She's made a very weird change for sure.
She she's slowly turning
Hmm.
towards the Republican Party.
And right. And so for me, the way I see it is, these politicians are powerful. They tend to be stupid, but
Uh,
but
Definitely.
many of them probably, I don't want to say genuinely believe what they believe, but
Mhm.
it's definitely their stance regardless. And so Bernie Sanders is amongst people who don't agree with him. In
Mhm.
fact, he's amongst people who probably fundamentally
Just
disagree with him. And
yeah.
so for him to get anything done, he has to deal with people who aren't coming from the same spot as him. AOC has to do the same. So does the squad.
So does
That's,
Justice
yeah.
Sims.
And that's why when people were telling her to force the vote with Nancy Pelosi, it's like, you don't understand. Nancy
Right.
Pelosi's not playing by the same rules as you. She doesn't agree with your ideology, and she also probably doesn't hate your ideology. It
Mhm.
probably doesn't factor in at all. She just wants to continue having power. And so, for Bernie Sanders, I'm forgiving on that because he has to deal with that in the Senate.
Mhm.
And he's doing what he can with what he has. He doesn't have carte blanche. He can't,
Yeah.
there's no secret, everybody likes to pretend there's like a secret meeting where if he just did this, that, or the other, he could get what he wants. And I'm being a little exaggerating on the secret meeting, but they seem to think that once you're in power, you can do whatever you want. It's like, no, you can't. You're
Yeah,
fighting.
it's
You're
like
fighting against
nothing could be
everybody
further
else,
from the truth there.
right? You are fighting against everybody else. Friends, hell, you're fighting against your enemies. You're fighting against your friends. 9 times
Mhm.
out of 10, you're constantly trying to convince people, and sometimes you have to convince people in ways that aren't ideologically sanctioned. But nevertheless, um,
They're also fighting against, to put a closing, statement on this, they're fighting against the media that supports them,
yes,
and not mainstream media. I'm talking about, like, this kinda media that we're doing, these, like, linear networks and podcasts, these left-leaning podcasts that support them, so
right.
to speak.
Well, and also, like, even if you're a leftist, you're gonna have leftists who don't like you. Um,
Mhm.
you could take 10 mirrors and you could drop them all and shatter them completely, and you would have fewer pieces of shattered glass than you do leftist ideologies. Um, there are so many leftist ideologies, and you're not going to make them all happy, because guess what? They don't all come from the same spot. There's
Right.
Marxist Leninists, there are Maoists, there are,
Democratic socialists or
yeah,
socialists
yeah,
in
democratic socialists. You have people who, hell, you have people who are progressives who maybe don't even come out of the Marxist tradition. You have
Right.
anarchists. They're not all going to agree, and so that's what's also unfortunate, is that there's no consideration of that. I don't want to be on the side of the politicians. I'm never really am. I do think a lot of them are scam artists, in the sense that, you know to get into politics, you have to be good at getting money from people. You
Mhm.
have to be good at performance and stuff like that.
Definitely.
So I don't want to give them too much benefit of the doubt, but yeah.
Yeah.
But
But
oh, sorry, I'm hearing myself echo again. Um, I don't want
Just
to
the
give them too much of
level.
the benefit of the doubt, but I also, I'm looking at this in a mechanical sense, where
Mhm.
it's not really about AOC. It's about the fact that she's in a position with a whole bunch of different other people, and
Mhm.
so yeah, she's gonna have to fight with people. She's gonna have to compromise, shake hands, and you
Move
know,
on.
yeah, you move on. Unfortunately, that's how you do this. And but to get to what I was saying before, to put a close on this,
Mhm.
she doesn't really have, outside of the usual PACs, super PACs, and the usual, um, excuse me, the usual avenues of fundraising.
Mhm.
She doesn't have in a big time organization backing her that has power. I don't want to be too mean on the well, I don't care if I'm mean about the DSA, but um, they don't have the kind of power that you would want them to have if you're running for office.
Right.
And it's not to say that they're not widespread. They're everywhere. They're in a lot of places in the United States, and I'm
Yeah.
not saying that. I don't know what good they've done or bad they've done or whatever. I hear a lot of people talk about them, but I'm just saying that it's not this. They don't have the same power as, say, I don't know. They don't have the same power that, like, the unions used to have. I want to say it's like AF. Is it AFI, AFL-CIO, or
Yeah,
something like
AFL
that? Yeah,
yeah, AFL-CIO
yeah.
or the,
They yeah
ACLU.
yeah they can pack a punch politically.
Mhm.
Now I know they're corrupt and stuff. I'm not saying, I'm not overlooking that, but I'm just saying that the DSA doesn't have that same punch in
Yeah,
Washington.
I mean, go
I'm
ahead.
is they don't have that same punch in Washington. That doesn't
Mm,
mean that the DSA is bad. The
mm.
how long has the DSA been around? It's been a little bit, but
About
it hasn't
30,
been
40
a long.
years.
Yeah, and so maybe the DSA needs, maybe the DSA needs to look into that. Although a lot of people are they
Are
should not.
happy.
Sorry.
Well, as I say, like, some people are just, like, happy with the way it is, and, don't get me wrong, I agree with you, like, they should, like, expand and branch out. Like, for example, here we are, like we technically live in the same town in Missouri and Kansas City. We don't really have a DSA facility here. We have KC, Democratic Socialists of America. We're active on social media, but it would be nice to have
Hmm.
a facility that I could go to uh, on a
Right.
given basis. Like if we were to go say look for something related, like to get involved in DSA, you'd have to go on the Facebook page and you have to go to some random place in town where they're just hosting a meeting. It's at another building, not a DSA facility itself, and that's just
Right.
something that's equally missing from.
Yeah,
Uh,
and that's the thing is that I think people would feel better if they could go to an organization that's leftist and
mhm,
maybe not fully leftist. There would probably still be argument about how far left they are, which is ridiculous.
right.
But let's say a leftist organization, I think we'd be more comfortable if we felt that we could go there for a meeting. Let's say you don't even go there every time there's a meeting. Maybe you just go there every once in a while. But maybe you notice something's going on, in
Hmm.
your city, in your state, whatever.
Hmm.
If you could go to that place and bring it up in a meeting and feel like they're going to actually do something, even if it's not successful, I think people would feel better about that than having to, go online or go to a meeting in a random place and hope to God that the person who they're talking to is listening, let alone be able to do anything about it. And
Right.
that takes time, which brings back to what I was saying. It takes time. We won't get this tomorrow. We won't get
Yeah.
this. I would say, if you did it right, it would probably take 2 or 3 decades, but at least you would have somewhere you would start at.
So
But you
yeah.
have to have people who understand power, and you
Mhm.
have to have people who can pack a punch in Washington or pack a punch in Jefferson City for us.
Right.
You have to have people who can actually deal with power, which
Right.
is what we don't have. And
Right.
unfortunately, that's because there's a I would argue there's a phobia, and I'm using that word correctly here, but there's a phobia on the left with
Mhm.
power. Nobody wants to say they have power. Everybody wants to say they're on the outside of power. Nobody wants to say, oh yeah, I can talk to these people, make a change, because as soon as you do that, you've got some people who just um they're like, oh, you're a part of the establishment, blah blah. And so that's my thing, is we have to get over our issue with power. We have to
Mhm.
organize. We have to take time, organize correctly. Don't make it so that we lose one election and everything gets fucked. you know
Exactly.
let's
Exactly.
let's do better than that. Let's
Mhm.
run a few local elections. Let's run some state elections. Let's get ourselves going where even if we lose, like oh, what's her name, the lady who lost in Buffalo, is it India Walton?
I think so. I'm not sure.
She I was reading about her organization, and I think you could do something with that. She
Mhm.
lost, but I don't think her movement lost.
Right. It's
That
just getting
Yeah,
started.
yeah. That's one of the issues with Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders is doing what he can with what he has. But
Mhm.
once Bernie Sanders lost, that coalition broke up.
Yeah.
And then when he ran again, it came back together and then it broke up.
Yeah.
And you need something that sticks.
That's
And
gonna
again,
be
that
there
yeah,
for like decades of on end.
right. And it's somebody who can approach candidates and say, listen, we'll fund your campaign if you go do this, speak for us, or this is
Well,
gonna
I mean, like our revolution is it's still around. Like it hasn't necessarily broken up. Um, if you know the organization I'm talking about, our revolution, the Bernie Sanders
yes, yeah, yeah, yes.
yeah. They're still around. I mean, they haven't necessarily, broken up.
I,
I mean,
I I know they're still around, but it's it's hard to explain it exactly.
Yeah, it
Um,
is.
but long
It is.
story short, yeah, the I'm not saying that the group itself is not around, but I feel like it probably doesn't pack the punch
It
that it
it
was going to.
it needs to be on rocket fuel.
Right. Well, the thing is, a lot of times, and this is the problem with American politics, actually linking this back to something else I said,
Mhm.
is a lot of politics, a lot of American politics relates to personality and
Mhm.
charisma. And so, like Bernie Sanders, he's got the personality for the movement, but we got to build a movement that doesn't care about personality. We have to
Mhm.
build a movement that's a juggernaut on its own. And then if you get that with a charismatic leader, say like, I don't know, a socialist type of charismatic leader, let's say
Mhm.
Eugene Debs or something like that. If you
Mhm.
get
Or
that with it,
Henry Wallace.
yeah,
I mean, I don't know if he was
he was
socialist.
he was kind of a progressive. Um,
Yeah.
Minkin
Oh,
covered his race. It was an interesting race, but nevertheless, um, if if you could have a organization that's a juggernaut on its own, it's a player in the game.
mhm.
It's establishing the interests of left wing people of the working class, doing the best it can,
Mhm.
and then you get a charismatic leader. That's a rocket. That's going to
Mhm.
take you somewhere. And that's my whole point. We don't have that on the left.
We did, and then we lost it.
Um, I think we had one for um I think we had one for a
PP.
little bit. There was definitely one during the there was definitely a socialist movement, let's say from the McKinley presidency to the Wilson administration really kicked the teeth in on the socialist movement. He's the one who imprisoned Eugene Debs.
Right.
But I would say that probably up until oh I don't know where to exactly pinpoint it, but
Mhm.
I'd probably say probably up until FDR. Um,
Right.
we had some kind of either progressive or socialist movement that was important and played a role, even if it didn't always win.
Right.
We don't have that anymore. As I referred to before, Pascal Robert talks about how we're in a 50-year counter revolution, and we're definitely
Exactly.
in that spot. Um, but nevertheless, um, that's the way I see the left, and to condense that into maybe a sentence or so, I think we need to stop with the virtual activism and realize that we have to come to grips with power
Mhm.
and working power. And we have to realize that the Constitution is mostly set against us, and that
Mhm.
the point is to establish our interests, not just within the halls of power, but beyond the halls of power. Make it to where even if corporate leaders are the only ones who make it into the Senate, make it to where they have to deal with organizations outside the Senate and outside the House of Representatives. You know,
Right.
if you have enough leftist working class organizations that they have to deal with, you eventually are going to push them to having to deal with working class problems.
Better words are said than others. But anyway, chrysanthemum, or I hope I said that right. Chrysanthemum on Twitch says, yes, Jimmy is such a disappointment. Uh, couldn't agree here. How do I hope I said that right. He
You
is
said you couldn't agree more.
couldn't
That's
agree
what you
more is
meant.
what I say.
Yes.
Yeah. Uh,
I would say he is a disappointment. Let's hope he can spell that though. disappointment. He probably has
So,
to mumble it under his breath before he says it.
yeah. So, as you were talking, I was pulling up this YouTube clip
Mhm.
of Michael Brooks, just because I just want to watch him laugh and dunk on Dave Rubin for the night to kind of put an end to the
Oh
show.
yeah, yeah. Put a little explanation.
Area code. Who are you?
Yeah.
Where are you calling from? I have 3-1 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Thanks for taking my call, everybody. This is John from Nebraska.
John, what's on your mind?
I don't really identify as left, at least culturally, but I try to listen to opinions across the political spectrum, and I think that the show is entertaining, and you do a good job.
Thanks, John.
But I had an experience with Dave Rubin, and I thought you folks would appreciate it. It involves some interesting ideas.
Is this a prank phone call?
I love this. No, good.
All right, go ahead. Yes. What was your experience with Dave Rubin? Ideas. By the way, we were so good. You didn't even do one Bolsonaro drop when Anna and I were talking about Brazil. That was amazing.
It's really hard not to laugh when I hear the word ideas now.
Well, yeah, Dave. One thing Dave has accomplished is is just totally making the word ideas a joke for a significant YouTube demographic. Anyways, go ahead. What's the story?
Well, first of all, I was invited to a Rubin event for free by some Turning Point USA people promoting this event on campus. I'm a senior student.
Okay.
Average students were weirded out by them due to their cheesy propaganda with like these stickers and buttons that said
Right.
"Big Gov sucks."
Right.
It's so cheesy. It's condescending. And I think it's likely why nobody was talking to them, even as conservative as Nebraska tends to be.
Right.
It's also just weird in a contemporary climate to see a small group of young people who, for some reason, think Milton Friedman or Mises are a novel rather than folks whose economic models and promises to baby boomers go through the floor.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway,
This guy could take the wheel of the show for a little while. All right, keep
Go
going.
off, John.
Yeah, go off, John. Go off, King. Yes.
anyway, I attended this event. I have to say, and I'm being completely honest here, I'm not being cheeky, but Rubin spoke for an hour and didn't say anything at all in that hour. For an hour, he simply said that you can run your life better than the government can, and that he feels so excited about where the right is headed. I'm not sure why he feels excited about that. To me, it seems obvious, at least, that the right is currently in the state it currently exists in is pretty much doomed.
Right. Well, maybe
I do have to say, though,
that there could be some funding sources coming his way. Maybe. See, that's the thing is maybe we got to give Dave more credit. Maybe he means super explicit. Like maybe he means specific. Like I'm really excited about the way the right is moving money from the Ayn Rand Institute's bank account into mine. That's an interesting idea.
I do have to say, though, something he said was particularly revealing about both him and those who came to see him.
Yes. Well,
which was at the start of his speech, he first asked anyone to raise their hands if they had it worse than their grandparents. To which nobody raised their hand in this small crowd of maybe 75 to 80 people that were pretty much overwhelmingly libertarian.
Right.
And
You don't say.
maybe it's 20-something conservatives. Rubin goes on to say that not once has anyone ever raised their hand when he asks this question. Now, it's either a lie due to, by many measures, younger generations in the USA being financially screwed compared to boomers, or it's not a lie and it actually just shines a light on the echo chamber, which really begs the invitation of those with other ideas, as we would say.
I feel like we've stumbled into a film noir.
I think, John, you should be calling more often, John. I think you've got chops as a caller.
The Ambrose Bierce of course.
Yes, and I just want to let people know that this is a good example of there is a way to call and let me step back and give you a lot of room. And it's called doing a good call. You do a good call. You talk without interruption.
I feel like John Draper is explaining Dave Rubin to us. It's wonderful.
Why do people love these shitty ideas?
Like, they're interested in ideas, but there are none. It doesn't make any sense.
Why do you watch these Dave Rubin videos? Happiness.
I waited for the Q&A, and they asked people who disagree to get their first question, and that was very nice of them, I guess. First question was a guy who asked why he didn't have left people on his show like Sam Cedar, and that's what prompted me to. It's like, oh, I should call in and tell him about this. But,
Dave,
Oh, you love
so
to see
he's
it.
there, like, even in Nebraska.
Thanks for the free advertising.
Yeah.
Whoever said that.
Yeah,
But
thanks, man. Props to the University of Nebraska. All right, John.
when this, in response, he said that he wouldn't waste time with someone like Sam. So I guess you guys aren't up for discussing ideas.
No, I don't think Dave wants to do ideas with us. Very dumb.
I asked him a question.
What was your question?
I'd like to tell you.
Yes, please.
Well, it's a question I've asked a number of libertarians, and I haven't had one really give me an answer to this question before.
Mm-hmm.
But this is strictly in the someone else could give you some kind of concise answer. But the question, in a nutshell, I gave Rubin brief historical examples of what I'm talking about to give the question greater clarity, such as I'm referencing an academic piece called "The Perfect Colonizer," and it's about the role alcohol played in colonial America.
I love it. I could picture literally like the sweat forming on his face while you even preset this question. It's like, oh my God, there's a lot of things. I couldn't even handle not building electric lines next to water lines with Joe Rogan. Now we're talking about how alcohol and history. Oh no. Better say that I'm interested in
this piece, it reveals that often colonials would, for free, because they're so nice, throw alcohol in with trade deals.
Right.
With full knowledge that they'll like this, they'll come back for more. Also, it'll spread alcoholism, and it will, tribal solidarity will break apart, and this is all good for us.
Mm-hmm.
And then went on to briefly talked about what led up to the opium wars with British free trade policy, flooding China with opium.
Jesus Christ, you gave him the opium wars. I kind of feel bad for Dave at this point. God, he's a very stupid man. You can't ask him these types of things.
But,
Jesus.
as the last one, I think this one's particularly interesting because no one...
that would be a legitimate... I just want to say briefly, I just have to say, if I asked Dave to answer, like if I did a video about Dave Rubin and tried to get him to comment on the opium wars, I think that
Hi, we're OfferPad, and we want to buy your home. Just go to OfferPad.com, enter basic information.
that would be a justification.
I looked
for him
away.
to use
They didn't
the
win.
YouTube terms of service.
You could put
It's like
that
William
on
T.
any
Bowman going
product,
up
and I would
against-
buy it.
It's like William T. Volman going up against Dave Rubin. That's awesome.
I'm going to skip
Final
ahead.
IM of the day.
I found it.
Kentucky Fried Comrade. Oh, okay. We're going to read this IM and then we're going to play it. As someone who's worked in San Francisco tech scene, I couldn't finish Corey Pine's book because it was giving me too many flashbacks. The show Silicon Valley is fantastic, though. Jamie is totally Guilfoyle, which I think is a compliment. I love
Time
that
to walk
show.
the left-hand path, my friend.
I love that show. Oh my God. Are you fucking kidding me? This is Dave Rubin getting questioned by our new friend from Nebraska, Dummy Dave, in all of his glory.
Is what I'm referring to, just so the context of the questions
Pause
understood.
it. Pause it. I'm sorry. Yes, he's a real caller,
Hell
and
yeah,
he does
dude.
have that awesome
He's
voice.
awesome.
He looks like hardcore Griscom.
Yeah, he
Oh, he
does.
totally-
It's
like-
Nebraska Griscom.
It's Nebraska Griscom. We need to get him. We need to fly him out. Have
Yeah.
him on TMBS. All right, go.
During European colonialism in the Americas, free alcohol was often given to native tribes as approved both to
I'm going to speed up a little bit.
weaken
because we
tribal
already heard
solidarity
this.
through alcoholism and to increase the odds of more trades in the future. When vast amounts of opium were introduced to China through British free trade policy, the results were largely catastrophic, with drug addiction destroying common families while making a large profit for the English, which, when they resisted in the Opium Wars, came into fruition. When Israel occupied the city of Ramallah in 2002, Israel took control of the television networks to broadcast pornography.
I'm with you.
Obviously in an attempt to pacify resistance by manipulating people through their passions.
I'm with you every step of the way on this.
Keeping these examples in mind, how do you differentiate between a state which facilitates
where you're
drugs and
going.
sexual liberation because it values your freedom, and a state which does the same thing because it wants to enslave you?
Well, if I understand the question correctly, I mean, look, I would say that everything that I've laid out here would be to design a state that doesn't have, without commenting on those specific things, especially the third one I've never heard, but let's put that aside for a second. All of the ideas that I've laid out here have been the ideas that would limit the state from doing any of those things. In a truly free society that is actually based on liberty and individual laws and limited property and all of those things, or personal property and all of those things, the state would not be powerful enough to do any of those horrific things. And this is sort of the negotiation. This is the negotiation that everyone has to take. So it's like right now, I would say to someone on the left, if you hate Trump, the argument isn't we have to impeach him or he's Hitler or any of those things. What you should be doing is actually fighting for the principles of limited government so that the guy that you think is evil, who might
Pause it.
go to war.
It's so awesome because you know that like somebody sent him an email 3 days ago, just like, oh my God, that's a jujitsu. That's by your logic.
That's the Evan McMullen move.
That's the Evan McMullen move right there.
Or who might enslave people or any of those things. What you would want to do is roll back the power on that person. So
Yeah, looks like
well, but I'm just not sure what the question is. I'm not for any of those things. I would be against the state doing any of those things.
Allowing a lack of legislation, allowing users or allowing pornographers
grab
to
the
run
microphone
as they see fit.
Oh my God.
Why is that good for human liberty?
It's a little bit of a confusing question. I would be for letting people make as many decisions on their own within the confines of the law. So it would be illegal, and like right now it's illegal. You can't just bring.
So yeah, Ruben
Oh
just
my
can't
God.
hang.
He just
Stay
literally,
gold, Dave.
I
Don't
love
ever
it.
change.
It's so great because that is like such a good sneaky college question, because you're basically saying like, here's like our contradictory examples that undermine your like. That's just something that, at the very least, if you're going to go around the country propagandizing for your libertarian nonsense and corporate feudalism, you should at least have some basic spin ready for an answer like that.
Yeah.
Because it sounds really intimidating, but you should have some like you could just totally ride on. Well, I never said mandate any. Like you could have. I mean, there's so many. But I love it. It's just think I know that this is beyond my capacity to understand, and I don't like it. If my initial word salad doesn't work, I'm done.
Unironically, sort of where we're the idea guys, because like that's something that I've actually thought about and seen people on the left grapple with when it comes to things like legalization of marijuana. Like, are we just going to end up as like sort of farmers on state-run pot farms?
Yes, don't we just going to anesthetize people and they'll get some like basic relief from the oppression? And does that undermine like the broader kind of will to liberty? Yeah, I mean, that's actually a very interesting question. But Ruben is
not ready for those ideas.
Yeah, woo, dude. I was more interested in brain sizes.
Why on earth
you'd ever want to do brain size content if you're Dave Rubin is beyond me. Have a great weekend.
Oh my God. All right. He'll be back. He had to use the restroom, so yeah. Oh, Michael Brooks. We miss him so. Oh, geez.
So I was about to ask you about halfway through that video. I was like, "Are you trying to torture me? Do you want me to watch Dave Rubin?" Oh my god!
Well, the point was that for Michael, I couldn't
Well,
find. Actually, that's why I cut it. I cut it down so we could speed it up. I just wanted.
I get it. I get it. I
Oh
just
my god,
how do I put this?
he's a shrub. That's all
Don't even call him a shrub. That's an insult to shrubs.
Well,
Let me put it this way. In a criticism of the poet and writer Jack Kerouac, Truman Capote said, "That's not writing, that's typing." And for me, my response to Dave Rubin is, "That's not a discussion, that's just talking." Because oh my god, it's not even good. It's not even good talking. You know, it's not like he gave a sly but entertaining answer that makes you like, he's wrong, but like at least he answered.
Right.
No. It's not even that. It's like
that liberty guy. He looks what's like hardcore David Griscom. He's like saying, yeah, alcoholism, and he's like, I don't know. It's like it's a very confusing question. The ideas that I have the ideas that I've always had on, and for somebody on the left, if you hate Trump, it's the only ways to like, come on. I mean,
the only way you could make me watch Dave Rubin is if you replaced his voice with Cartman from South Park.
He does sound like Cartman. I would agree.
Well, no, yeah, but Cartman's cooler. Jesus Christ, man! I just there's a word that people don't use called vaudeville. Vaudeville is I think I'm saying that right. I apologize if I'm not saying that right. It's a word that's meant to describe somebody who presents themselves as something only as a matter of performance. So an intellectual vaudeville is somebody who uses intellectual words and ideas, but as performance. Dave Rubin is not even a good performer. Okay,
not when he was.
They should bring back throwing food at performers, because Jesus Christ, I would throw food at. I'd go just throw food at him.
Yeah,
I'd wait till he begins.
The most terrible stand-up. You think that was bad? You should see his stand-up comedian from his stand-up comedy act rather from the mid-2000s. But anyway, I'm gonna end it there. Yeah, very often.
Sorry, I don't even want to think about. Go ahead, end your show. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. All right, man. I appreciate you coming on. I know this is a weird time, so
it works for me. My Saturdays are usually clear, and I appreciate being on. I had a good time. Maybe Saturdays are better. If you remember when we're talking to Christina, she was noting that the weekends, Saturdays are probably a little better, and we did have somebody in the comment section. So
yeah,
thank you to that person in the comment section, by the way.
Chrysanthemum, thank you for the compliment. Thank you for saying great job. I appreciate it. Chrysanthemum on I hope I said that right, on Twitch.
Don't worry, it's not like she knows where you live, or does she?
I wouldn't say that. All right. Before I let you go, why don't you go ahead and do your usual plugging of all your stuff? Dun, dun.
I have a Substack called Ferocia Animi. That is Latin. It is spelled Ferocia Animi. It's on Substack. We also have a Facebook page under the same name, as well as a Facebook community where articles are posted. We also have a Twitter at Ferocia _Animi. We also have an Instagram. Same name.
Mm.
It's the same thing all around. If you want to read articles, polemics, and literary and media reviews, you'll enjoy Ferocia Animi. It's let's call it, it's a literary magazine with leftist politics, and it's for civilized people who enjoy being clever.
And that is on Substack as well.
Yes, it is.
Ferocia.substack.
Yeah, and if you want to see my appearances on any other podcast, I'm usually on here. This is my home podcast.
Mhm.
But I've also been on the Movie Nights Extravaganza with Forrest Miller.
Mhm.
I've been on These Are Bad Movies with Amy Bell and Amanda Ferriante. And I've been on this podcast with John Ross, the John Ross Show.
3 podcasts. You've been on
Yeah.
3 podcasts, and I still have to do These Are Bad Movies with Amy and Amanda. Not sure when yet. I need to get back in touch with them. So with that, I hope appreciate you being on. Go check out the latest article at Ferocia Animi about the Virginia race. With that said, I will let you go, man. All right. See you. Have a good night. All right, so that was our first Saturday night doing with now I'm stuttering my words with RC with Charlie, as his first name is. RC is his pen name. Again, go see him at Ferocia Animi on Substack. I will drop a link in the YouTube chat after this show is finished. As I am, let's see here. Where's the captions? Here they are. So, as always, catch this show, TJRS, the John Ross Show, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. on YouTube and Twitch. And now you will catch RC and myself on Saturday evenings, same time, 7 to 9. You can read me on Substack. Let's see if I can get that. Okay. Read me on Substack at tjrs.substack.com. I treat it more as a blog, unlike Ferocia Animi, and I blog there probably maybe once or twice a week, although that may change in the future. You can find me on social media. Twitter is at John Ross 1992. That's my birth year. Facebook is John Ross. Twitch is Jonathan Ross. All one word. Hopefully it'd be easy to pronounce. So with this, donate to Patreon, but honestly, I may be doing away with that. I may have to find some other ways and means to keep the show financially going. I'm not sure yet, but in any event, if you want to donate what you can, it doesn't matter to me. And as always, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button and subscribe. If you're watching on Twitch, like Chrysanthemum was doing, if they have a subscribe button, go ahead and hit that subscribe. Speaking of that, thank you to Chrysanthemum. I hope I said that right. On Twitch for watching and commenting. Again, I apologize for the lighting situation where I know I've been coming in and out. I hope to do that. Like right now, I'm coming out. I hope to get that fixed hopefully soon. And yes, the mic issue, I did have my mic turned down, so I did turn that up. So thank you. As far as the echo and the videos, I don't know. That is something new that happened. So I usually have to mute my mic when I'm sharing videos. So again, I hope to have that resolved hopefully very soon. So with that said, thank you again to Chrysanthemum. I'm sorry, I'm stuttering, on Twitch for watching and commenting. With that, left is best. Rest in power, Michael Brooks. We miss you every day. Rest in power to Comrade Ed Asner. And I will see you Monday.